somehow DJ Payne won, or Dilly, or Othello, or Pyro, or whoever we're talking about, Tone Jones, whoever we're talking about, somehow they can sell beats for a living, but no one else can. And you're like, that's not even logical. Well, I look like a Smurf right now. I don't know what's up with my lighting. Welcome once again to the Entrepreneur Club podcast. If I look tired, it's because I am. I didn't sleep.
Just entrepreneurship, Payne.
What did I say? Oh, my bad. Once again, welcome to the MEC podcast. My name is DJ Payne One. I tried to say music entrepreneur podcast. No, music. You know what? I'm exhausted. I didn't sleep last night. I climbed a tree at 2 a.m. after jumping a bunch of fences to rescue my kitten who was up high in a tree. And I had to jump 2 fences. I was just praying the whole time that no neighbors were awake at that point, because that would have been a really uncomfortable legal situation.
Or had alarm systems or rings in their backyard, because that would have been terrifying.
Well, if they might have rings still, and they may see me jumping their fence and then running with a ladder and then climbing like a lemur up to rescue this cat. But she's safe.
I told Payne I didn't know this happened in real life. I thought it was just movies, and I thought you're supposed to call the firemen to get him out the tree.
I am the fireman.
There you go. So
how are you feeling? I know, Dame, you're not feeling particularly well. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no, I'm good now. I just woke up with a stomach ache. But I'm good.
Sick of this music business.
I'm good. I started doing some work for $2 distribution this week. And I have a few things that I want to share. I think that will be part of this podcast. So, as we get into it, just a few realizations that actually piggyback some of my tweets from last week. So excited to get into it. What's up with you, Erinn? Erinn came back from producing a big conference.
Yeah, it was a very unique but dope experience to learn. I was in New Orleans for 9 days producing, working with the production managers for the American College of Cardiology. They had their national conference or international conference. So they had people from 30-something countries, a bunch of cardiologists. I thought it was going to be this like boring convention, and they had the coolest, most dynamic activations I've ever seen at any conference ever. Their use of augmented reality to showcase like new medical things, the amount of money they put into their activations and build outs, the stage designs, it was insane. So it was a really cool experience for me. My business partner and I both got hired to come out and help produce the conference. So it was dope because it's a completely new industry, but our skills translated, and we were also able to pull from that and learn. So I was excited to do it. It was a long 9 days. I was averaging 8.5 miles a day because of how massive the convention center is. But I'm glad to be back in Atlanta, glad to be back on the pod. So yeah, it was a dope experience.
Welcome back.
So when we were trying to get Funk Volume off the ground, I used to work for a company that like just put on conferences, like random conferences in like different industries. So it might be in the healthcare field, it might be in alternative energy, so I got to see just kind of the economics behind it. And, if you have a conference, it's tough to get a conference off the ground or a festival off the ground, anything like that, but once it has, and like people pay, especially in like, more professional fields, like they'll pay a shitload of money to come to these conferences. A lot of times the bills just paid by their company. But $2,500 to come, and it would be like thousands of people. And at that time there wasn't that many webinars, and they got into webinars early. And even for webinars, they were charging like $250. They were making a lot of money with these conferences. But anyway, Cuddle Season is out. The first episode is out. It's scored by Bari, who was on the MEC podcast a few weeks ago, or maybe a month and a half ago, something like that. So it has much more of like a television sitcom. No, not sitcom, but if you've ever seen How to Be a Player, it's kind of reminiscent of that movie. There's probably not a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are old enough to have seen How to Be a Player. And we tried to cover it on Blackbusters recently and realized that How to Be a Player is really nowhere to be found for some reason. I think it just now got on one platform, but we literally couldn't find. The only thing we could do is buy the DVD, but I don't even have a DVD player anymore. But it literally wasn't on any streaming platform. But it was a movie starring Bill Bellamy. So Big Jaw's Cuddle Season is reminiscent of that, and I'm not even sure if that was on purpose, but it's pretty funny. The first episode is pretty slow, but we had a premiere the other day and watched the whole thing, and it's pretty funny. So even though it was hard as shit to get out, and we had a lot of issues editing it, hopefully it pays off.
Bill Bellamy, that's amazing.
What'd you say? My bad.
That's nostalgic to hear Bill Bellamy's name.
Yeah, Bill Bellamy's still funny, still doing his thing. But anyway, Payne, I got a quick question for you. This probably won't take that long. This is a suggestion from R.A. the Rugged Man to producers, and I want to see if you just agree with it, because it seems like it makes sense. He says, beat makers, if you send beats to artists, have your name in the text of the file. Artists are all over the place. A lot of us are a mess. Obviously, that's not your fault, but sometimes we find a beat in a stash month later and want to use it and have no idea who sent it. Is that something that you do, Payne? Do you put your name in like the name of the file when you send it over?
Not as often as I should, but if I send over a folder, certainly. But I also acknowledge that a lot of artists are transferring files to their phones or moving them around with USB drives and putting stuff in folders. So the way I look at it, when it comes to us beat makers, if we want our beats to get used, we have to make that experience as easy as possible for whoever it is that we want to use our beats. It doesn't matter. A lot of producers just send beats out, and I don't know why they do this. They make things inconvenient for the artist. I have long since abandoned sending out snippets. I've long since abandoned sending out beats that are so tagged that they're unusable. I've long since abandoned a lot of practices that I thought would protect me, because all I want is for the beat to get used beyond anything. Beats get stolen, whatever, but you as a producer have to do the work to make sure that you've done everything possible to make the beat using or purchasing process simple. And to that point, Dame, I did want to talk kind of about that topic, just in general, because so many people say production, beat making, that whole world is so saturated. And when you bring something up like this, it reminds me how unsaturated it actually is. It's saturated down here. Up here, if we're looking at a pyramid, the bottom portions of that pyramid, yeah, they're saturated. These are the people that send out snippets. These are the people that send beats out to producers, trying to get producers to buy their beats. These are the people that send out loops that are just, Egyptian lover looped up and say, yeah, this is original. That's that kind of bullshit. And then the closer you get to the top, you see how few people are performing at a high level and how few people are in the middle. And they have that mobility and that potential to reach that high level. And lately, I've been noticing this a lot. I don't want to dwell on the criticism because it's absolutely stupid, but it feels like I've been getting a lot of criticism lately for the content I put out, because and I've seen these comments, they're so weird to me. People accusing me of giving producers false hope or scamming producers into thinking, not like an actual scam, but they use the S word, scamming producers into thinking that they can sell beats too, just like me. And it's like, of course they can. All they have to do is figure out how to do it with their own brand. What a ridiculous accusation, but that's what's happening. And it's because it's so quote unquote saturated that a lot of people stay at that bottom rung of the pyramid where they're competing with a bunch of people that don't know what the hell they're doing. The more you know, the better you do, the higher you climb, and the smaller your competition gets. And then when you get to the top, you realize no one's even competing up there. People are collaborating. People are sharing so much information. There's no competition there. And so for me, to even hear so many producers talk about how beat selling is so saturated, this is saturated, that's saturated. The only thing that's saturated are the algorithms. The algorithms aren't us. The algorithms aren't rappers that want to buy our beats. The algorithms aren't collectives of producers working together to make better music. The algorithms don't dictate our creativity, you know, to the point where we're completely helpless. So I just, if you're listening to this and you're receptive and you're on the fence and you think it's too saturated, it's not. The smallest gestures of professionalism make you stand out. The smallest gestures, that you know, simple things like consistency. People are always like, that's a platitude. Everyone's always just saying, be consistent, work harder. The reason everyone's saying it is because that's the truth. At some point, you either listen to it and figure it out or you don't. But I'm not going to be a force of discouragement in my community. I'm going to be the guy that's saying it's possible. And if people don't like that, they don't like it. I don't have any control over that. I'm just telling you, like the story Dame shared, small things can get you into a place of advantage over others. Just doing simple things, just changing and learning simple tricks. They're not even tricks. It's just kind of like what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but it's difficult, right? I mean, there's always room to do things different, right? Like, you know, the water liquid death, right? It's almost like $1 billion company right now. And they're doing something that companies have been doing for decades, is selling water. They just did it in a different way. They branded themselves differently. You know, what it comes in a can, and the name is Liquid Death. Like a lot of people probably thought it would never work. When I first saw it, I thought it was pretty weird, but it turned out to be pretty successful. Like they've done really well. So who would have thought that somebody would have an idea to sell water after tens, if not hundreds of companies have, well, yeah, hundreds, because everybody has their own brand of water now. Like, so, you know, who would have thought there'd be more room to sell more water? But
no one's ever made water look like that either. The visual branding was kind of
like death metal. Yes.
Yeah. Machine Gun Kelly, all that shit.
If I was a producer right now, because I know that, you know, it's very hard for artists, right, to kind of cut through the clutter. I would try to be developed. Well, one, you always have to get good at identifying talent before it blows up. Like we all have to be better A&Rs. But I would be working on a sound that's different, that helps artists be different, right? That's what I would be doing on top of, you know, all the things that we talk about on this podcast, being professional. But like, are you really cultivating a sound that you can, you know, contribute to an artist's craft to help them stand out from all of the music that's getting recorded today?
Which is easier said than done, but you hear producers lament how homogenous everything is, and everyone's making this type of beat and everyone's doing this. And then you listen to their beats and you're like, well, so are you. So.
Right. So, yeah, it's, I mean, it's tough. I don't ever, I'm sure I sound discouraging all the time, but I just want to sound real more than anything else.
I think I draw the line in the sand when people start telling you what you can't do. I've never heard you tell someone what they can't do.
That's not my position. I shouldn't be allowed to tell somebody what they can and can't do. Like that's not my role. Like, you know, I shouldn't be allowed to do that. So that's why I never do it. You know, I see people win all the time that I don't think would, like, so that's why I shut up. Like, hey, maybe you'll figure it out.
But I think that's the problem, because you have a lot of people who are now in positions of influence who have never won at something. And so their narrative is, you can't do this. Whereas for me, if I've seen someone do it or if I've experienced it myself, I'm going to say, hey, this is possible. And then you have a lot of people who just can't step outside their own experience box. And they're like, all right, somehow DJ Payne 1 or Dilly or Othello or Pyro or whoever we're talking about, Tone Jones, whoever we're talking about, somehow they can sell beats for a living, but no one else can. And you're like, that's not even logical, but it's so much easier to accept that narrative than, unfortunately, to feel emboldened and feel hopeful. That's a whole nother conversation.
What I realized, like, just starting yesterday at Two Lost and just being in the office and like seeing the list of artists that we're working with over there, like there are a lot of artists that are winning, like just profile after profile, 5 million monthly listeners, 10 million monthly listeners, 30 million monthly listeners, like artists that are killing it. So as much as people complain, and I know that the complaint just comes from frustration or just haven't seen anything yourself. But when you really start seeing like how many artists are winning out here, you'll probably, number one, you'll probably start to change your tune on streaming a little bit. But they're killing it. There's a cat that works for Two Lost that has 900,000 monthly listeners, has a day job as an A&R, and also has 900,000 monthly listeners. So it's probably making, the same amount from both jobs. And that kind of leads me to a discussion I had on Twitter that I wanted to get your guys' perspective, because I really haven't met, maybe I've met, I can count on one hand the number of artists that put in 40 hours a week. I don't know how many artists do you guys know that put in like a real 40? I'm not talking about just in the studio, like, because my guy Emilio replied to my tweet and he started talking about, well, I count the gym as part of, because that's part of my, aesthetic and my brand. And then I got to just live life. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Like, we all live in life. So we all working, 1 million hours a week. Like, how many artists do you guys know that are actually working like a full-time job?
Of the 18 that we represent in various different ways, I know one she probably works about 30 to 35 hours a week. And she does office hours, which I really appreciate, because I know when she hits her office hours, I can be going back to back with her getting stuff done. But most don't. Are you including studio time too?
Yeah, well, so everybody creates. Sometimes people take longer to create than others. So yeah, but I would even throw studio time in there.
Yeah, if we're talking studio time, especially because she's on a schedule right now, she's probably working about 50 hours a week. She's doing 30 hours at this, like 25 to 30 hours at the studio every week right now, and she does about another 25 to 30 hours of working. And then we've been shooting a lot of stuff too. So I know she's getting at least 10 hours worth of shoots in a week. So she's one of the few that I know, though. A lot of artists waste a lot of time. And I know this because I suffer from ADHD and I didn't get diagnosed until last year. So I do this process as well. It's where you sit and think about what you have to do, and then you stare at the computer or whatever, and you do a lot of stuff. You procrastinate around the work. And then after 2.5 hours, you may do one thing, and then you go back to procrastinating, and then you get frustrated, and then you go outside, and then you come back, you may go get something to eat. By the end of the day, it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and you're still working on something, but you haven't really spent more than like 3 hours working. When I pinpointed my ADHD, I started working on learning better workflows for the way that my mind works. So I won't sit for longer than an hour and a half. I'll go on a walk. I'll move workstations. I'll go to my co-working space down the street. I'll sit on my porch. So it feels like I have a variation, but I still get work done. Now, even I only work like 20 hours a week, and I own 2 music companies, and I'm on 4 podcasts right now. Do you know what I'm saying? So like outside of podcast recording, I'm maybe working 20 hours a week, unless I'm like at an event like I was last week, or, at South by, whatever. I spend a lot of time on calls, but even my meetings I limit now, because I started realizing that meetings were just wasting my time. I was so exhausted from taking all these meetings and giving all of this game, or like answering questions, that I wasn't able to really work on work. So you're asking how many artists work 40 hours a week? I don't know many music industry professionals outside of people who are like working with a ton of artists. I don't know many music industry professionals who are organized and succinct that are working 40 hours a week. I think once you get to a certain level and you know how to delegate, you have a good team, aside from flying out and in-person meetings, because that shit can take a lot of time. Most people aren't sitting at a desk 40 hours and knocking out business. Like, even again, high level managers, because I know a lot of them and I talk to them and they're like, yeah, a lot of my job is going to places. It's not the sitting at the desk working on stuff. So yeah, most artists aren't doing that. Most artists are wasting a lot of time.
Yeah. So I would say, if an artist tells me they're working 40 hours a week, especially if you're not on, like, what are you working on if you really not popping? Like, once you get popping, then you'll probably have interviews, tours, things like that. Okay, now we working. But if you aren't really on yet, like, what are you doing for 40 hours? Like, you only have to put out a song a month or a song every 2 weeks, something like that. So how long does that take to make? When the content around that, how much is that? I'm like, if you really break it down, the reason that you think you're working so much is because you lack structure, right? And you're just all over the place. If you had structure, if you had a good grasp on what you're doing, on what your brand is, what your messaging is, you could really, go from what you think is 40 hours to probably like 15.
Yeah.
Because I really
see a lot of is that people, I think, I know you asked a rhetorical question of what are you doing for 40 hours? So, but I'll give an answer. I see artists who have a sense of entrepreneurship, then they start working more because their music career is at their core, but then it's surrounded by all this other stuff. Like maybe they've opened a studio, maybe they started shooting their own videos and they're like, you know what? I'm going to shoot videos for other people. And then they just start adding it on and they become entrepreneurs. And then suddenly they're working a lot. Now, the problem that I see is a lot of those scenarios is that, and in a lot of scenarios in general, the main focus, the artist's career starts to take, the backseat to all these other pursuits, because these other pursuits, though they're not what the artist wants to do professionally, they're paying now and they're also easier. I think psychologically, and Erinn, you can speak to this. I'm sure a lot of people psychologically feel like working for someone else, working on someone else's projects is just less of a energetic and mental investment than working on your own. And I don't know if it comes from fear of, failing if you're doing it all on your own. I don't know if it comes from like a codependency type of impulse, but I see a lot of people doing that. It's like they have their main thing and you're like, wow, you're so good at this main thing. Why don't you work more on it? Oh, because I got this side project I'm trying to put him on and I got to do this and I'm building my team. And I'm like, you're just scared to do it by yourself. There's something that you need to figure out because you're your own worst enemy right now.
I have an artist like that now, and he frustrates me to no end. He's so talented. He owns a mixing and mastering company, but he will promote his features and his mixing and mastering company. And I'm like, drop a freaking song. Do you know what I'm saying? And he has a lot of monthly listeners. He makes a decent amount monthly on Spotify. And I say a lot, like we're in the like 300s. You know what I'm saying? If you consistently drop, because when he was consistently drop, we were hitting the 600s, right? And that only lasted a little while. And then it went back to, okay, I'm going back into the lab. Cool. I know it takes time to make music, but he literally is fully autonomous. He owns a mixing and mastering company. So he can write, record, sing, mix, master, everything, you know? And like, I'm talking about, he's done some like Billboard chart topping songs. So it's not like, oh, he's a mixer. Like he's done some great stuff, but he spends so much time on that. We're like, yo, what's up? And he's like, oh, I got this to mix. I got this to work on. And he's stressed about money. And I'm like, yo, your career, especially because we're working with you, could be making the money that you're worried about. But I think he's scared to push to that next level. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why. He's got a team. He has an infrastructure, but it's like pulling teeth to get him to drop his own music sometimes. And he'll tease snippet after snippet online. And I'm like, and then when I ask him, like, yo, can you put up some content? He's like, oh, I've been working on the mixing and mastering. I'm like, yo, just put your cameras right in front of your computer. Just set it up, chop it up. Do you know what I'm saying? He streams on Twitch and he makes a decent amount up from streaming on Twitch. But sometimes he'll fall off the map for a month and be like, oh, well, this and that. I'm like, yo, you're living in the dream that we have worked on creating for years. I've been working with this kid for years. I'm like, you get paid to go live and play video games. Like, I don't understand why I'm having a discussion with you about this. All you have to do is, you know how to edit your own content. Just put out covers, something. You don't want to drop music. You don't want to put out covers. You don't want to go live on Twitch and post yours. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't know what to do. So yeah, Payne, I 100% know. I have another chick. We got her into a writing camp. I can't tell you who it is, but this is the writing camp. So it was just a 1-day virtual writing camp. You had to be in a studio doing it. They would give you $37.50 for every track that they wanted to keep it. They were exclusives, right? But it's just stuff you wrote in 6 or 7 hours. They buy you out. Or if you wrote a song, even a verse or a chorus, and they didn't want to keep it, they had a kill clause where they give you $1,000, right? This artist consistently is like, yo, I'm trying to make the ends meet. So we get her into this camp. I'm like, just write hella songs. There's a kill clause. So if you don't like it, cool, but write hella songs. The day before, she's like, I have all these features to turn in. I don't know if I have time for this tomorrow. I said, are you getting paid for any of these features? She said, no, they're just for friends. And I'm like, I'm confused what we're talking about. Like, I'm your manager. I'm here to make you money. And she does a lot of other side gigs. Her side gigs, she typically gets paid probably $100 to $200 an hour. She's really, really talented as an artist. Cool. $100 to $200 an hour. I'm telling you that at very least, if you write one song, they're giving you $1,000. You just have to be there for 6 hours. But you could write multiple. If they hate them all, you're getting $1,000 after this writing camp. But the complaints, I don't know what it is about artists, but it's something I have to fight it on a regular basis. Or artists, I have bigger artists that I get bigger opportunities for. And they're like, well, I didn't have any say-so in that. And I don't really like that you brought this opportunity to me. And it seems like you've already negotiated the deal. I'm like, why am I your manager? Explain to me what I'm here for. I shouldn't have to ask you everything. You're trusting me as an industry expert. I'm trusting you as an expert in writing music. Write your music, bring that shit to me. We're going to go market it. I come up with ideas. I broker deals. I bring it to you. It's a two-way street. But for some reason, artists have this weird thing in their head. And I don't know. This is why I get burned out on this industry. This is why I'm no longer in the day-to-day stuff. This is why I make more money teaching than I do working in the industry, because I'm just like, when my artists tell me that, I'd be like, all right, team, you got it. Just let me know when y'all need my help.
Yeah. Yeah. And all that is why I don't deal with artists. This shit is ridiculous. Like that doesn't make sense. But I would encourage all artists to work a 40-hour job, no matter what it is, like flip burgers, drive Uber, whatever it is, just so you know because a job gives you structure. You go to the job, they tell you what to do for 40 hours. Like, you need to be told what to do and you sit down and do it. So just have a job so you know what 40 hours of work feels like. Because a lot of the artists that claim that they're always working have never really had like a full-time job. So they don't even know what that feels like. That first time you have a job is 40 hours. That's going to feel like the longest 40 hours ever. Like you would have thought 40 hours felt like 40 weeks.
You know what the leap too is though, when we're working traditional 9-to-5s, we're being told what to do. And suddenly when we're like, all right, I'm familiar with the 9-to-5 structure. I can work 40 hours a week and no one's there to tell you what to do. That's when everything falls apart, because how are we? So it's unfortunate that there aren't that many jobs available for people where they have autonomy. It's always do this, do that, do. There's so much structure. It's never a matter of us learning how to create structure or being encouraged to create structure. And honestly, that's a lot of that stuff starts at home. Parents, if they're not giving their kids autonomy, then the kid becomes an adult who seeks out a job with no autonomy. And then they have these creative impulses, but that's how dreams die, because they can't translate that creativity into any sort of structured way. And it's torture. I mean, people are torturing themselves going back between, I'm going to do this full time. I'm going to quit all my jobs and pursue music because that's what I want to do. I'm unhappy in my life. And then it's like, no, but I'm so scared to break out of this traditional 9-to-5 structure. I can't do it. And they just go back and forth until, the day they're just way too old to even think of.
I've actually experienced the opposite, though. I've experienced that kids that didn't grow up with structure don't know how to explore autonomy. Like a lot of my artists, and I can say it even for my artists who grew up in more strict households are the best entrepreneurs. They're the best. Like I grew up in a very strict household, so I craved autonomy. So I would find ways to get it. Like I joined every club just so I could be away from my house, so I could do things on my own. But I think even with me kind of being all over the place, I think I'm a great entrepreneur because I had so much structure. I noticed with my artists whose parents kind of like let them do whatever and set the tempo, they can never find a second gear. They may be decent at doing something or producing something. They may be pretty good, but they usually don't reach greatness because they've never had to buckle down and say, I do not want to do this thing. And therefore I won't do the thing. I'm just going to make a bunch of excuses as to why. Like to me, most of the people online who are complaining about it's impossible probably got to do whatever the fuck they wanted as kids. Or let me not just say that. They might have grown up in an abusive situation, so their mind is not functioning properly. But I tend to find that people who had more strict upbringings, who weren't granted the opportunity to explore themselves, are able to turn on that second gear. Like I can turn on a second gear in a heartbeat. I may not want to do it, but I'm going to do it because you do what you want to, so you do what you have to, so you can do what you want to, And most people are like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an artist. I get to do whatever I want. And it's like, anybody who's successful has to be able to deny themselves in order to go to the next level. So
you're right.
Self-sacrifice and discipline are the cornerstones of excellence. And I feel like most people will never achieve excellence, even if they're full-time in the music industry.
So it's like this perfect mix of, because what you were saying about your upbringing, I'm like, that's the same with me. So now I'm like, what am I actually trying to say? Because I feel like it wasn't until I was in college where suddenly it wasn't even necessarily autonomy. It was just like, all right, you're on your own. They don't care what happens to you. This structure here, you're lost in this. Like I went to a Big Ten school. It was 50,000 of us. They don't give a fuck. So I had to figure out how to discipline myself in an independent way. And I'm not saying everyone has to go to college to learn that, but I do feel like jobs have to, and parenting has to have that sort of balance, because a lot of it then ends up like, I don't know. Are we the exceptions or are we the rules, Erinn? Like the fact that our parents were so strict.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah. So scrap what I said. I'm just talking out of my ass. I don't want to be like a child psychology expert because I'm not.
Let me bring up one more topic. It's another exchange that I had on Twitter, and I hate to well, I don't hate to do it because I'm doing it, to dive back into the Web3 space. But I sent you guys this tweet from Amon Europe, who's kind of a fixture in the NFT space. From what I understand, she really does her thing and understands the space, and I believe is an R&B artist. But she says that hip hop and R&B music NFTs won't see the amount of appreciation they deserve until more Black investors, collectors, whales get involved in Web3. This is no shade to any of the whales already in the space, but the truth is no one will resonate with our art as deeply as we do. So this is just, I understand that she's speaking from like a Black perspective, and the fact that, you know, the success of NFTs, the folks that have earned the most money in NFTs have probably been white artists, and not even probably, they've definitely been white artists. But I have a problem with this tweet because like my response was like, why do people feel that NFTs in and of themselves like just deserve more appreciation? Like just because it's another way to deliver music, right? That's kind of why I see it. I mean, it's not just that, but it don't mean that the art is better. It don't mean that the artists are spending more time on their craft. It don't mean nothing. It's just like before CDs, if I was to say, hey, whoever's making music on these CDs, they deserve more appreciation than the people that were still on tapes or vinyls. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. And maybe I'm missing something, but like why? And there was a response, because I have a serious question. Like why do NFTs deserve? Like that quote, the deserve is what throws me off. And the person that responded said, actually, let me just stay on her post really fast, because she said we need more Black investors, collectors, and whales. Let's go one by one. Investors. From an objective standpoint, music has never been a smart investment. So don't expect a flock of investors to come into the music industry, right? So that's collectors. I don't know that many people that collect music. You know, you might have had people that purchase vinyl seen an uptick, and people want, you know, vinyl in their house and things like that. But again, I wouldn't expect a shitload of collectors to just rush the space because they love music like that. And then whales. From what I understand, a whale in the NFT world or the crypto world is just somebody that has a shitload of crypto, right? So they're like philanthropists. So the third option is to basically just get a handout or to get a grant or something like that. So it's like if you're waiting on those three groups of people to enter the space to just bless you with money, I just don't know. like that's kind of like a wish strategy, right? That's just kind of the way I see it. But the person that responded said that, what did he say? Because they are wait, hold on. I got to open it all the way up.
They got a lot of likes on that response, I remember.
He said, because they are creating an avenue where musicians are actually getting paid for their work without the middleman, and supporters are receiving special perks for their support as well. It's really a system that would benefit everyone from its mass adoption, and it's exactly the type of system the majors wouldn't want. Everything that he mentioned in there can be done already without NFT. And that's been our point since day one, right? Like, special perks, that's been a fan club. Like it's the same thing. And we're not saying that the technology won't be useful, because I believe that it will, but let's not look at this any differently than what's already been done for decades and decades. It's just a different community. If this is a community that resonates with your music and you've been able to build community here, then maybe you'll be successful, but that's just like building community anywhere else. So it's just weird. Like this deserve thing is because it's not just like, a lot of artists feel like they deserve more, right? And not understanding that there's a shitload of music that's being created every day. Like, why does everybody feel like they deserve shit instead of going out and getting it and building it and creating it? And that's, again, what I saw at Two Lost when I'm looking at all these artists that are killing it every day because they figured it out, instead of sat online saying that they deserve. Like, why? Why do you deserve it over all these other artists that are trying to figure it out and bust their ass and build their communities? You don't deserve
what
shit.
I think is so appealing about that platitude is the no middleman thing. because it's just such an easy thing to latch onto. And I look at the Web3 space as being incredibly hard to penetrate because of all the middlemen, because of the gas fees, because of the wallets, because of the platforms, because of the whales. It is not accessible. And I look at something like Bandcamp Friday. I'm literally uploading music to Bandcamp and then getting 100% of the money back. I mean, there's a payment processor, but why doesn't that get more love? I could go on a rant about why people don't show Bandcamp Friday more love. But again, there are people using Bandcamp Friday, Soul being one of them. And, you know, we have projects on there, and Bandcamp Fridays are great for us. So people are using the spaces. They're using the spaces as much as they would like to use the spaces. I keep hearing people make these statements about NFTs and why aren't more people flocking to NFTs? Why aren't they getting more love? Because it's inaccessible. It's not a great system for the average consumer. It's still not. And people have been touting the benefits and the revolutionary elements of NFTs for so long. And I think, okay, but please make them revolutionary.
Yeah, I think that it's ridiculous to make a statement like that, especially when it comes to Black whales and Black investors, considering that our population is so small and 8% of all millionaires worldwide are Black, most of them being first or second generation. So you're telling me I just got money and you want me to invest in the instability of something that's yet to be proven? Like, and I get that there's a bunch of NFL guys who are, a handful of them, let me not even say a bunch, a handful of them who are getting cashed out in crypto. But it's like,
not anymore.
With the most stable coin, Bitcoin, we're seeing an incredible amount of instability. Do you know what I'm saying? With like even the autonomy that we're supposed to get with the blockchain, like these crypto wallets, and I'm saying this from experience right now. I am very frustrated with the way that a recent transaction went with a company backed by the blockchain. They told us, yep, everybody just uploads their wallets. It'll pay out automatically. We got an email 2 nights ago. Oh, all of the money has only been going to one wallet. What? Here's the thing. My business partner and I are prudent business people, and we recognize that stuff doesn't typically go the way that people sell it to you, especially with something as fresh as the blockchain, crypto wallets, all these things. So we've been holding everything. We were like, there's too many questions here that haven't been answered. So we're not going to falter. Everybody's still going to get paid. But had we not had that prudence, had there not been really my business partner, had there not been that forethought and the consistent questioning on our end, that one contributor would have been paid everything. We would have had to go to that contributor, beg for the money that they probably wouldn't have given back. And then we would be on the hook for paying out. It's like 14 contributors. What? So for me, for you, anybody saying that, one, it sounds like a cash grab. Oh, more Black millionaires. No, only 1% of anybody on the internet. I heard a stat like 2 days ago. There are 7 billion people on the internet. Of the 8 point whatever billion people in the world, known people in the world, 7 billion are on the internet. Only 1% of those people know what NFTs or crypto is. So you're sitting here telling me that a millionaire should take that knowledge and now invest in your art that has no higher meritocracy than all of the rest of the shit that gets uploaded to Spotify every day, just because you're an early adapter to something that you probably still can't explain the benefits to. I'm not coming for the crypto people. I'm not coming for NFTs, Web3. We're on it. All three of us, we're on it. We're trying out new things. But until somebody actually proves something other than a hoax or a ruse or an occasional pop just because it's a bunch of white dudes sitting around bored, I don't want to hear it. Nobody has any actual pragmatic arguments to support what's going on.
What I would like to see is some transparency into all of the drops, right? And more importantly, not just the initial drop, but the secondary sales that are supposed to kick back a percentage to the creator. How is that going? Like, how is that going? Because I know that we've only kind of heard of and celebrated like when there was like a successful drop. Right. We didn't, you don't hear about it when somebody puts their NFT up there and nobody purchases anything, which is, I'm sure,
happening all day, every day.
Yeah.
And we hear about the successful drop, but like the Tory Lanez drop.
Yeah.
No one talked about the secondary market because there wasn't one.
Yeah. So even for these biggest drops, let me know what are people still trading these things back and forth, driving up the value? I highly doubt it, right? Because people don't collect music like that. I mean, there might be, you have to really build your brand up to the level of a Wu-Tang to sell off an album for $1 million. But again, that was done before NFTs ever existed. These ideas exist. It's just another method to do a lot of the same shit independent artists have been doing for decades. And what happened
to the Nas drop? What happened to the Steph Curry drop? What happened to all these drops that had this big secondary market? I've heard nothing.
Yeah, I would love to see that data. I would love to see the activity of because you have this, you buy this stuff and it sits in your wallet and you're probably like, okay, I got it in my wallet. Cool. All right, what happens now? So, but the idea of deserving something, that's something that's prevalent beyond the NFT world, beyond the crypto world. Like, too many artists feel like they deserve something just because they create music, like they're special, like they're unique, right? Like, okay, you created music, but it's so much more than that. And it speaks to all the stuff that we always talk about on this podcast. Like, there are a shitload of you that are creating music. That does not make you special. That makes you one of millions of other artists that create art. Now what? So I just, when I saw it, so it wasn't even about just like crypto stuff. When I see artists we deserve more from Spotify, right? We deserve, you got to come to the table with more than that, because a lot of people deserve stuff or feel that way. And that's not gonna get the job done.
You can get more if you have the right bargaining chip. You know what I'm saying? Like Chance the Rapper got an exclusive deal from Apple because he had the fan base behind him. You know what I'm saying? It's like, anytime that I walk into a room and I think I deserve something, if that party doesn't give it to me, then I just go build it. Because my thought process is fueled by the data or the understanding that I actually have what I'm asking for. People sitting on Twitter saying they deserve stuff and then can't give a reason why they deserve it, and then actually can't go create what they think they deserve, don't actually deserve shit.
Right. I mean, there are some people that do deserve something positive coming to them, but that's because they built something amazing and will eventually get what the value of that is. So if you haven't built anything, you don't deserve shit. Some of you, so I could start being an artist right now. I could make a song. I got the tool, I got the mic or whatever to do it. And I make a song today. Do I deserve for it to be sold?
If you do,
trash. Yeah. I just think it's wild. In this NFT space, it's, as time goes on, I don't even like being right anymore, because if I'm right, normally with an artist, if I'm right, and this is away from the NFT stuff, if I'm right, that means we lost time, money, or both. Like if I told you to do some shit and you didn't do it, and now I'm right. Like I'm not gonna stand over you and be like, ha, I told you. I'm gonna still be pissed.
Yeah.
Because it's like, damn, we just lost all that time. All that potential money we could have made because I asked you to do something and you didn't believe it or you didn't do it. And now we're in the same spot. That's nothing to be celebrated. I didn't win.
Oh. Well, okay. What is to be celebrated is that we'll be back next week with another great episode. So that is a positive way to end the podcast because I'm feeling triggered from my old management experience and back when I was always, playing the role of like de facto manager in all the rap groups I was in. And I don't like that. So,
well, shout out to Erinn for still being in it, even though she just told
for real.
I'm not really. I'm not really. I talked to one of my partners this week about exiting one of our companies. I was like, this shit is for the birds. Like, why am I trying to convince people when I have a track record? Y'all just got here. Like, I've been in this shit 12 years and I haven't left. I haven't faltered. I'm not perfect, but y'all just got here 3 or 4 years ago and wanted to tell me everything. Cool. Go do it. Do what you want. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I'm cool on these artists faking like they want something that they really don't. And it's just like I was helping out an artist last year because they were doing well, and I thought I could add to what they were doing. And there's all of a sudden, the cat just stops making music. I'm just like, yo, like what, like what are we doing in this space? Like it's just too many situations, and I don't even try to understand it anymore. I just, if something happens, I'm just like, all right, let me just move on because I'm probably gonna bang my head up against the wall trying to figure out like why this happened when you'll just never know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would say come to my South by Southwest panel. If you're listening to this episode on Monday when it drops, the panel is tomorrow on Tuesday. I'm speaking on the DigiLog panel. It's called Artistpreneurship. So it's about artists being entrepreneurs, which is exactly what the MEC is about. Artists, producers, and managers being entrepreneurs. So come see me. Shout out to the DigiLog. I'll be on it with Kayvon, J.R. McCreary of NPR Global, another artist that I don't know. I can't remember the other panelists. I'm sorry, y'all, but I'll be there. If you're at South by Southwest, come see me. Let's take a picture. I like last year I met a bunch of MEC people at South by. So come see me. Shout out to y'all. I'm looking forward to meeting any MECers at South by this year.
Yeah, shout out to the MECers. And we'll be back same time, same place right here on the MEC podcast. Peace.